you get interrupted by phone calls from clients all the time, and you're concentrating on something. You might not have any staff, or you might have just one legal assistant or a legal executive, but a lot of the client comms needs to be done by you. This is about then we help implement Calendly, like an online calendar system where you record a voicemail going, hey, I'm not available right now, visit this website, it's got my Calendly, book a time, and then they'll show you availability in the next 24 hours, and then book in like a 10-minute call. So little things like that, or even you find yourself doing a lot of same things more than once. You have a proper structure your precedent library properly, you structure your knowledge library properly, you set up the right templates. Doing a lot of those really small things well, then, in the medium term, after a few months, after 6 or 8 months, you can really see the difference. And that's how in real life it translates into the better mental state, better mental health, less stress.
I'm Chantal McNaught, and this is the People in Legal podcast, the Law and Beyond show, exploring everything there is in the expanding legal universe. Today's guest on the Law and Beyond show is Gordon Tian. Gordon is the founder of law firm Profit Success, a coaching practice dedicated to helping small law firms grow scalable, profitable businesses with less stress. Drawing on his experience building a 7-figure professional services firm and advising numerous small to medium legal practices, Gordon works with law firm owners to shift from the reactive legal work into proactive business leadership. Thank you for coming onto the show, Gordon.
G'day, Chantal. It's great to be here. Really excited to be part of it.
Absolutely. So you've got an interesting career so far, obviously leading to law firm Profit Success. Can you walk us through your career?
I did a law and accounting degree. I think it was just fate would have it that I got picked up by one of the big 4 accounting firms and got an internship, and they said, hey, do you want to come back after you graduate, give you a graduate offer? And it was quite good in that they said, we'll pay for your profs, we'll pay for your CA, we'll give you some days off to study. So it was quite a good deal. Plus, after I got my internship, I was kind of lazy and didn't really apply to any law firms. And so I thought, okay, sounds good. So I just got on the train with accounting. But in hindsight, I probably quite like the getting to know businesses at a deeper level. So that was something that I was really interested in. And so got qualified through them and then moved to another big 4 accountancy practice. And that's where I met my current business partner. So I helped him out. So I used to finish work at 6, grab a kebab, show up to his office at 8, and then used to work till midnight. So did that for
5 to 9 or 5 to midnight. After
your 9 to 5. I was also doing like a postgraduate diploma in immigration advice. So I finished that as well. It's good to be living at home and single back in those days. You did a lot of stuff. So did that whilst I was working. I was helping James, and then went off to corporate. I saw that you're into sailing. Actually went into a company that made the rigs, the booms and the mast for sailing yachts and super yachts.
That's
So
really
I was in
cool.
there. So I was the head of the New Zealand finance over there for about a year. And then James just said to me, hey, dude, I'm so busy. You need to come and just help me do this full time. And we'll just grow it together. And I said, sure, that sounds good. So this was in about, I think in our late 20s. So he was about 29, I was 28. And then we had some really good growth in the first few years. And fast forward to today, it's 13 years later. Now I've got a good team, everything's all smooth, and we implemented a lot of processes. And because we started from nothing, we implemented all the tech systems ourselves, and we designed the process ourselves. And now we can work anywhere in the world because everything is in the cloud. Anyway, so as part of that, we started working with some law firms as accountancy clients, and that informally shifted to some kind of informal, sort of unstructured business advice, business coaching. And now, well, I guess I'm half in the door in terms of the legal profession, and just the fact that I knew a lot of people in the industry just because I went to law school and kind of hang around on the circles. And so that's kind of morphed into what I'm currently dedicating most of my time to at the moment, is the law firm Profit Success, essentially helping small law firms um, really succeed and having. So there's, what I found is three things that small law firm owners really want. One is income, two is meaningful work, and three is balance, meaning, working hard but not at the expense of your health and relationship. And so we helped them to achieve these three things. And because that's essentially what we wanted to have when we first started our practice.
Yeah, and they're all very human needs, right? That it's funny, the more conversations I have when I explain that probably the most uh, majority of boutique firms aren't technically profitable, where the owners aren't really getting paid for themselves a decent wage, is really surprising to some. But would you agree from what you have seen so far that it can be a struggle?
Yeah, there's a broad range, but everybody who starts out, when you first start your practice, it is essentially like a job that you've created for yourself. And then depending on how fast you kind of adapt to the environment, new skills that you learn in terms of, we help you with in terms of developing some of that business skills, then you can actually turn it into quite a profitable business. I've seen, you know, I've worked with clients and I've seen other, more entrepreneurial lawyers that's have done it. So it's definitely possible. But yeah, when you first
Yes.
start off, everybody's starting off the starting line at the same kind of level. But then depending on how you play that game, you can definitely see some results.
Yeah, and well, that's obviously really hopeful and promising, but it does sound as if there is quite a bit of a knowledge gap, because lawyers aren't trained to run practices. And I have heard the similar thing in accounting. So it sounds like, though, your experience in where what you were able to be exposed to, and obviously your work ethic has allowed you to kind of unlock, and now you're sharing a lot of the skills that you unlocked for yourself, which is I think quite necessary, because of just how many there are out there that are struggling. And I don't think they know that there is hope. You see a lot of like smaller firms, maybe 3 people, 4 people, and then they end up folding or
Yeah,
begging a
yeah,
larger firm to acquire them.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's the unfortunate reality. So I'm glad that there is hope, and the legal profession has someone like you that can help and assist and coach and guide.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And I think it's also that people aspect as well. And so
Yeah.
the reason it's coaching and not consulting or like advisory is just that. That's what we found with the starters. There's a lot of mental aspect to this as well, because you can read a book or someone tell you all the information you want, but it's really hard to execute. And so it's about like, what is the mental gap that you have from knowing to doing? And there's a lot to unpack in terms of the psychology that's behind it. I don't know from textbook, but I just felt it, and just going through it, I knew there was a lot of how you dealing with anxiety, stress, change, and you do something, and then there's a lot of resistance, and so it's like all of these like practical real life issues that
Yeah.
for small firms, because you don't have the support system in terms of big firm, that infrastructure, then a lot of stuff is left on you, and so it's just about how do you do that in a like step by step in a way that's not going to trigger your nervous system, so that you're not going to be able to follow through.
Absolutely. It's kind of remembering that we're human. And I really like your point about the difference between, knowing and doing. I had a friend recently who has a firm, and it's going quite well. And she calls me and she's like, I need to talk to someone. So I'm like, okay, well, let's go for a walk. So we both put our shoes on, we're on the phone, and we're going for a walk, because there's one thing that's great about nature, is that it's so grounding. It reminds us that the sky isn't falling in, and we've got to get away from the screen sometimes. And yeah, like, so what she was describing to me was how she felt like she just got to, was up against a wall. She felt like she had nowhere where to go. And then when I asked her about what's going on in her business, and she had all these wins. She recently had added a managing like a manager for her practice, so she didn't need to be actively involved in the day to day because all of that was delegated. The financials were working well. It was almost, what she was telling me was, she was feeling the feeling of, oh my God, I've built this thing and it doesn't need me anymore. And that's the difference between knowing and doing. And so it's like I kind of had to relate to her in this sort of bit, which coincidentally lines up to the 6-year anniversary of where I got to actually live my dream. Ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to be a cat. You know, when
You
you
want to be
ask
a
a
cat?
5-year, yeah, I wanted to be a cat.
What a dream,
And
yeah.
you know, when you ask 5-year-olds, oh, what would you like to be? And there's like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be, you know, a fireman or a firewoman. No, I wanted to be a cat, you know, and so I got to live that dream and perform in the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical Cats 6 years ago. And I was telling her this, and the last matinee, it was a really, really long performance season as well. And that last matinee, and we're singing, you know, when Grisabella, you know, is finally given permission to die. Sorry for anybody, I've just ruined Cats, but you know, it's like 40 years old. So go see it, preferably on the stage. Yes, well, that song, Memory. So we're all on the stage when Memory is being sung. And I'm like, you know, my eyes are just leaking because not because I was sad. It's kind of like this really deep feeling of like contentment where you've made it. And so when I explained this to my friend, she's like, oh my God, you're right. Like, I thought that this was a wall where I was like, I'm at a crisis point, but really it's at that realization that she's finally made it. And having, so that's a bit of a story that you've reminded me of, with that whole, like, the difference between we read in a textbook, or we hear on these podcasts these stories about like these people that have been able to do their dream, but there's a really big difference between actually feeling it, and it can feel like a really big feeling. Do you have any other stories to share from your side of things where, you know?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think just touching on what you said as well, in terms of that the feeling that you get is actually wrapped up in like how you see yourself. Is like what's your identity? So a lot of, well, no, most people who are lawyers identify as lawyers, right? So that's
But
their
what is a
identity,
lawyer?
right? So it's like Chantal, the lawyer, or Gordon, the lawyer, right? So that's how you introduce yourself to people. That's, you know, you're part of professional networks, you know, and that's a lot of your identity is wrapped up in that. And so that's not a conflict with business, but you need to integrate it with business. So you can't just have exclusively, I am just the lawyer that does the thing and I just happen to have a practice. It's more like, how do we integrate these two identities together so we can have like a thriving practice, and therefore you have a prosperous life. And I think firstly, it starts off with that mindset, right? And where a lot of the wins come from is, number one, developing that mindset from integrating the technician, the professional technician, with the entrepreneurial business owner. And then at a practical level, it's just doing a lot of small practical things well, and then doing one at a time. So stories could, you know, things that I've helped clients with, like just these small things which adds up. For example, you get interrupted by phone calls from clients all the time, and you're concentrating on something. You might not have any staff, or you might have just one legal, you know, assistant or a legal executive, but a lot of the client comms needs to be done by you, right? So it's about, then we help implement, like I say, a Calendly, like an online calendar system where you record a voicemail going, hey, I'm not available right now, visit this website, it's got my Calendly, book a time, and then they'll show you availability in the next 24 hours, and then booking like a 10-minute call, right? So little things like that. Or even you find yourself doing a lot of same things more than once. So you design, have a proper structure your precedent library properly, you structure your knowledge library properly, you set up the right templates. Like for example, there was one client that I helped him to set up this the software called Typeform. So he was typing the same thing all the time. So instead of typing this long thing all the time, you just go /A2 and it just pops up on the screen. But like doing a lot of those really small things well, then in the medium term, after a few months, after 6 or 8 months, you can really see the difference. And that's how in real life it translates into the better mental state, better mental health, less stress. It's just those 1% things. When you do 10 of them, that's 10%. And 10% less stress is noticeable. So I think that's I think just more the nitty gritty real life stuff rather than the really high level aspirational stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and so have you got any sort of stories around, those that you've helped where like that type form thing, like how did that change that person's life? Removing that friction of rekeying all the time.
You can just see it in their daily demeanor, like in the way that they talk, the way that they hold themselves, their energy levels, how they're less kind of reactionary with their family, uh, broader mindset. So it gets them into like a good virtuous dynamic in terms of, you're saving 1% of time so you can work on the business. So therefore you can use that time to save another 1% of time so you can work in your business.
This is a really great point, and why I'm so passionate about my own research in navigating conflicts between profession and business, because it's it's like that there's this just cloud that follows you around. And when you do those sorts of small, deliberate things that remove those friction points, it's like the cloud is slowly getting smaller and
Yeah.
smaller.
Yeah.
And I really do. It's so interesting. You're the first person I've come across that has actually described the externality of poor mental wellness and how that manifests in your day-to-day life for others. I think a lot of people talk about like how it feels internally, but what it looks like externally is what you were saying about, the fact that you want to be present for your family, but you can't because you're so stressed out. And then, well, what does that mean about if you remove a lot of that stress and you're externally a lot more clear and a lot more open, then are they then better lawyers?
Yeah, definitely. Like I used to have this client that he couldn't sleep properly because like you don't switch off. You never switch off after work, right? You just think about, okay, what's the deadline coming up? What's this matter? Or did I do this right? Did I delegate properly to my junior? And so then that meant because he couldn't sleep properly, he didn't wake up early, and then he didn't start the day well, and then that just all snowballs down from there, right? But then I think the biggest thing that I can say to make a change is in business and in a law firm, you feel like everything is interrelated, so you don't know where to start. So you go, like I'm busy, but I don't have enough cash, so therefore I can't hire these people, so therefore still relies on me, so therefore I'm busy. Like it just,
Yeah.
and you don't know where to interject to
Yeah.
action to start solving. And what I tell my clients is that's a good thing because if it's a circle, it's all interrelated. It doesn't matter where you start. Just start at one of the points and then it'll feed back into itself anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just
Oh,
find, doesn't matter where, just start somewhere. Doesn't matter where, just start it and then it'll just become better.
I love that. And it's something that, I'm kind of grappling with a little bit myself in the whole busyness thing. Going because I was talking to my mum about how busy I am, and she's like, "Oh, is it time to hire an assistant?" And I'm like, I don't know if the cash flow is enough to justify, somebody who, because I don't see hiring as something that is just for me. I'm asking somebody to give up their time, which they can't get back. It's the only resource we can't make, is our own time. And so it's like, well, I would then have that real, like a strong obligation and reality to make sure that not only does remuneration have to match that, but they have good working conditions. And I know that I'm not in the position to provide a good working environment. So the next thing I turn to is, how do I make it a better working environment in terms of like automations and systems? And so I like it. I'm feel you're already coaching me in this conversation, it seems, because now I'm like, okay, great. I can now justify the time, instead of like doing the production, actually going back, and it's like, how do I make the production more efficient and more effective and even be better quality through the systems and processes, so I'm not stressed and spending hours and hours. I think this is a really great segue then to talk about technology, because you and I have had lots of conversations about the impacts of technology. And I'd love to start with, something a little bit spicy around the fact that recently on the 29th, we're recording this episode on the 5th of November, and on the 29th of October, so still relatively recent, OpenAI updated their policies so that there is meant to be in ChatGPT these disclaimers when you ask ChatGPT around things that need to be licensed, thinking things like accounting advice or medical advice, and of course legal advice. That doesn't necessarily seem to have stopped the AI from providing legal advice or medical advice, but there's now there's a lot of discussion on LinkedIn on there. Do you have any thoughts around that, Gordon?
Yeah, I think we've all had the situation where client calls you and goes, I searched on ChatGPT, it told me this, and then you go face palms. Oh, that's not right. It's like you didn't even ask the right question to begin with, and the answer's not even right to the question. Right?
Well, that's why they're calling you up, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They want you to verify, but they're
And so
so
that's
lost.
the thing with tech. And I think, I think for OpenAI, it's just about covering themselves so that they don't get sued for telling the wrong things to people. But yeah, I think with the prevalence of large language models, and you can sign up for a free account, like more people are just gonna use it like Google. So it's not actually too much different to Google in terms of that dynamic. So people are still going to need to be paying for expert advice. And I wonder, I think you mentioned also like you did, but then afterwards you did try to ask a legal question that actually did give you some ad hoc legal advice. And so I think some of it is also about them just covering themselves in terms of risk. And yeah, so it'll be interesting over the next few years. Also with the prevalence, the rapid expansion of other platforms that's designed specifically for legal industry. It'll be interesting to see how it goes there.
Well, yeah, and that whole, as the hype train had been, continuing on its journey on its tracks, those conversations about how you've got really these two growing camps and a very shrinking middle, like one being incredibly fearful about what the future looks like if we don't have trusted licensed advisors to help administrate. We are the officers of the court, and so you can't have that accountability with a machine, and what kind of disasters are waiting for humanity if we continue this. There's that camp, and then there's the other, which is like, how incredible is this technology? It's quite literally another extreme of going and doing all of these things and then going, oh well, we'll just retroactively fix any kind of issues, but we can now, so let's do it, instead of asking those questions about whether we should in certain aspects of implementation and using this technology for advice. I know that you're quite grounded and practical, and I wanted to get your opinion about what you would like to see or want to predict for the next 12 to 24 months while we're
Sure.
still in this AI bubble.
Yeah. Just a disclaimer, I probably will get it completely wrong because if I could predict any future, I would probably not be here. I'll probably be a multi-billionaire.
So, well, that's it. So rather, let's kind of reframe it then. It's okay, well, what the best way to predict the future is to create it. So what would you like to see others create? And maybe even, I want to ask the really pointy question, what are you doing in your coaching business to create the future you want?
I'm a big tech person, so I'm a heavy user of AI and tech, and so that's definitely the future. I would say, when you talked about the two camps of proponents and really people who are really against using AI, I think there's probably a middle ground in terms of it's being realistic in knowing what the current tech is, in that number one, large language models, they don't reason. They're not reasoning models, and so they just predicts the next word that they think that you want to hear. And so when you give it a lot of reasoning tasks, which in law is predominantly a lot of logical reasoning, that's where it kind of falls down, have hallucinates. And also the fact that with the legal profession, it's like an interface between the law, which behind it is parliament, politics, policy, and people. So whenever you have that interface happening, it's very difficult for tech to replace that, because both sides are people, and both sides are not necessarily always rule based. And there's a lot of judgment required in terms of understanding context, uh, and also what's not said as well when dealing with people. And so that component will be very difficult for any tech to replace unless they're able to capture inputs of the entire world, or of getting understanding the context. And so therefore it needs to be in an environment which is all digital. And so that's, I think, a long way to go. But saying that, technology is always going to improve, and the growth is always going to be exponential. And so it's about how do we leverage, number one is being realistic about what the tech is at the moment. And number two is how do we leverage the current tech to the best of its ability to get the maximum effectiveness, to use it to enhance our lives. And so in terms of what I do with currently is, I use, I've got, workflows that's AI, in terms of software, everything's on the cloud. There's just nothing, I don't have any paper. So the accountancy practice has been paperless for about 8 years, with law firm Profit Success as being paperless from day one. And I always like to keep abreast of new tech developments, like the AI tool you mentioned last time we caught up. I started using it. I signed up for it, and it's
Oh,
been pretty good.
Abacus.
Abacus, yeah,
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 it's fantastic, isn't it? So
yeah.
not
It's great.
this is not sponsored by Abacus, but if
No,
you do want to contact us.
please don't. Please get in touch. Give me Chantal. Yeah,
Yeah, big fan
yeah.
of yeah, it's really, it's almost like going back to your advice before about where do you start? You just got to start somewhere. And that whole acknowledgement, there's this theme that keeps popping up in my life at the moment, which is about the mortality of things. Because we get a little bit existential on this show, but not just talking about our own mortality, but the fact that when it comes to tech, there's always a sunset date. If you think about the fact that businesses used to have their own servers, and it used to be like astronomically expensive. Like it would be at least, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for like a small business, like under 10 people. And it's like, you get any bigger than that, and it's like in the hundreds of thousands to have and maintain your own server. And now it's like in the cloud, where the cost of
It's
that
like a
has,
small fraction. Yeah.
yeah. And like this whole commodification of that. So understanding that there is going to be an end date, so you might as well just jump in and use your own sort of ethical frameworks to guide you on what you believe is right when it comes to the outcomes of your clients, the disclosures to the courts, your own competency. But it's not enough to try and be blind about it, I don't think. And we're almost reaching 100% usage anyway. It's just like,
Yeah.
are we using it properly? We might switch and think about like how the fact that the most interesting careers are absolutely not linear, and definitely the most interesting people, especially the ones that I ask on the show, like you, Gordon, have really interesting backgrounds. I think that it can also be helpful for those that are entering, either they might be students or entering the legal profession now where it's quite an anxious time. I spoke with a bunch of students recently, and pretty much 3/4 of them put their hands up. The remaining quarter were mature age students who have lived through a few economic crises. So, so their prior returns help them go, no, this investment's going to be okay. If you were advising though your younger self on starting out in your career, what would you emphasize?
Starting out for my career, after uni,
Yeah.
I would emphasize the people aspect, understanding like what motivates people, how to talk to people, how to resolve conflicts, how to network effectively. And I think, and then everything comes from that, because uni teaches you, gives you information, gives you a framework of thought, and then it probably teaches you some research skills so you can self-learn, right? Those are all very important when you first start your career. But what you need to do in addition to that to complement it is being able to work with other people effectively, because you'll be in a team, you'll be in an organization, and you need to cooperate with others. And so how do you then kind of develop the skill set, also the mindset of contributing for the organization? Because if other people win, then you'll win. And so one of the things that I did, I was really conscious of when I started working, was I treated every single task, all my jobs, as if I was the owner of the organization. And that's how I thought about things. So I never complained about, or I never thought, doing overtime or doing additional things on top of my work was like something that other people were exploiting me. It was more like I'm doing it for myself because I'm using this opportunity to upgrade myself. Yeah. I think that would be the biggest thing.
Like I've got goosebumps. That's really amazing advice.
Thank
One
you.
of the things that we do on the show is I've got these conversation cards, and there's always a question, although I've asked you a couple of questions that we didn't quite prepare, but there's always this unprepared question from this stack. And they're really lovely things that give a bit of an insight. It's so fun seeing people's faces on this, and now I've made you really nervous, so that's the point. And I'm terribly shuffling these. So Gordon, what is something silly or funny that happened to you this week?
Oh, this week. It's been a short week. Maybe let's go back. Maybe can I go back a week or a couple of weeks? Something funny.
Something silly or funny.
Silly or funny. I can share with you. Maybe like this is going a bit back, but I thought this is probably one of the most silly things funny and silly things that's happened. So when I was at uni, so my dad, we came here from China as immigrants in the 90s. My dad used to own a dairy, and I was at the
which is
the
a convenience store for
the
for those not in New Zealand.
Yeah, sorry.
We call them dairies, which is beautiful. It's where you go get your milk.
People call them, convenience stores. And I was just at the checkout. I was checking somebody out, and I didn't have my glasses on, and I could see he parked his car, and there was like a shape in the passenger seat. I thought it was a dog. I was like, oh man, you've got a really nice looking dog. And he's like, he paid up. He's like, oh no, thanks, man. That's really good. But by the way, that's my wife. I was like, I'm so sorry. So I still remember that day. He was really good about it. He was just like, yeah, no, yeah, fair enough. No, that's good. That's a fair comment. But by the way, that's not a dog. That's my wife. So it was a lady with blonde hair that I didn't have my glasses on, so I couldn't see. It was a beautiful, like, blonde yellow color. I thought it was like a Labrador.
That is gold, but not a golden retriever.
Yeah. Or golden retriever. Yeah.
Oh, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Gordon, and chatting with me about your career, how you coach, and some of the things that you're seeing and talking tech. So appreciate it. This has been the Law and Beyond show on the People in Legal podcast. If you haven't already, give us a follow on your chosen platform that you're listening to this. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe and make sure you turn on notifications. We will see you next Friday.